My parents abandoned me at 12. My wealthy uncle took me in. Years later, they came begging for my help. When I was 12 years old, my parents packed my clothes into 2 black trash bags and left me standing on my uncle's porch like I was something they were too embarrassed to keep. I still remember the sound of their car pulling away. Not because it was loud, but because it was the last time I heard them choose me. My mother didn't cry. My father didn't look back. My older brother, Caleb, sat in the back seat with his headphones on, staring out the window like I was already a stranger. My dad told me, "Your uncle has money. He can handle you better than we can." My mom added, "Don't make this harder than it has to be." I was 12. I didn't understand what I had done wrong. I wasn't a bad kid. I didn't get into trouble. I didn't steal. I didn't fight. I got good grades, cleaned my room, and tried my best to stay quiet whenever my parents argued about money. But that was the problem. Money. There was never enough of it in our house. At least, that was what they always said. But somehow, there was always enough for Caleb's baseball gear, Caleb's private tutoring, Caleb's new sneakers, Caleb's birthday parties. When I needed new shoes, my mom told me to stop growing so fast. When I asked for lunch money, my dad told me to skip breakfast instead. Caleb was the golden child. I was the extra mouth. And one day, they decided they were done feeding me. My uncle Raymond opened the door that evening wearing a gray sweater, glasses low on his nose, and a confused expression. He was my father's older brother, but I barely knew him. We saw him maybe once a year at Christmas, and even then, my parents always acted uncomfortable around him. He was wealthy, quiet, serious. My father hated him for it. Uncle Raymond looked at the trash bags beside me, then at my parents sitting in the car. "Where are you going?" he asked. My father shrugged from the driver's seat. "He's better off with you." Then he drove away. Just like that. I stood there shaking, trying not to cry because 12-year-old boys think crying makes them weak. Uncle Raymond didn't ask me questions right away. He simply picked up one trash bag, then the other, and said, "Come inside." Ethan, that was the first night in my life I slept in a room that was warm, quiet, and safe. At first, I kept waiting for my parents to come back. Every time a car slowed down outside the house, I ran to the window. Every time the phone rang, my heart jumped. But days became weeks. Weeks became months. They didn't call. They didn't visit. They didn't even send a birthday card when I turned 13. The only thing my mother sent was a short message to my uncle. "Hope he's behaving." That was it. Not "I miss him." Not "Tell him I love him." Just, "Hope he's behaving." Uncle Raymond never showed me that message until years later. At the time, he only told me, "Some people don't know how to love properly. That doesn't mean you are unlovable." I didn't believe him then. But he spent the next several years proving it. He enrolled me in a better school. He helped me with homework. He taught me how to shake hands, how to look people in the eye, how to save money, how to cook a simple dinner, how to iron a shirt, how to apologize when I was wrong, and how to walk away when someone only wanted to hurt me. But more than anything, he taught me self-respect. He never spoiled me. Even though he had money, he made me work for things. When I wanted a car at 16, he didn't buy me one. He gave me a part-time job at one of his warehouses and told me he would match every dollar I saved. When I wanted to quit after my first terrible shift, he said, "You can quit. But don't quit because it's hard. Quit because it's wrong for you." So I stayed. I learned the business from the bottom up. Sweeping floors. Loading trucks. Answering phones. Filing invoices. Listening in meetings. By the time I graduated high school, I knew more about logistics than most adults. At graduation, I looked into the crowd and saw Uncle Raymond standing there in a navy suit, clapping harder than anyone. My parents weren't there. Caleb wasn't there. I told myself I didn't care. But that night, when Uncle Raymond gave me a watch and said, "I'm proud of you, son," I had to excuse myself to the bathroom because I couldn't stop crying. He was the first person who ever called me son and made it feel true. Years passed. I went to college for business. Uncle Raymond paid the tuition, but only after making me sign a personal agreement promising that I would maintain my grades, work summers, and never treat education like a gift I was entitled to waste. I kept my promise. After college, I joined his company full-time. By then, Raymond Logistics had grown into a regional powerhouse. Warehouses in 4 states. Government contracts. Private distribution deals. Hundreds of employees. People called my uncle ruthless. They were wrong. He was fair, and fairness feels ruthless to people who are used to getting special treatment. I worked my way up quietly. I didn't use his last name to intimidate anyone. In fact, most employees didn't even know I was his nephew for the first year. I wanted to earn my place. At 28, I became operations director. At 32, I became vice president. At 35, after Uncle Raymond had a mild stroke, he called me into his office. He looked older that day, smaller somehow. But his eyes were still sharp. "Ethan," he said, I built this company with my hands. But you protected it with your character. I didn't know what to say. Then he slid a folder across the desk. Inside were legal documents. He was making me CEO. I told him no. I said people would think it was favoritism. He smiled. Let them think. You know the truth. I know the truth. The balance sheets know the truth. 6 months later, I became CEO of Raymond Logistics. And that was when my biological family suddenly remembered I existed. The first message came from Caleb. Hey little bro. Long time no talk. Heard you're doing well. We should catch up. Little bro. The same brother who didn't turn around when our parents left me on a porch with trash bags. I didn't respond. Then my mother called. I stared at her name on the screen for a long time. I hadn't changed my number because some small, wounded part of me had always wondered if they would call one day. When I answered, she cried immediately. Not real crying. Performance crying. Oh, Ethan. My baby. I've missed you so much. My baby. I almost laughed. I said, what do you need? She went quiet. That was how I knew. People who love you ask how you are before asking what you can do for them. She told me my father was sick. Caleb's business had failed. They were behind on their mortgage. Medical bills were piling up. They had nowhere to turn. Then she said the sentence that made something cold settle inside my chest. Family helps family. I thought about 12-year-old me standing on Uncle Raymond's porch. I thought about every birthday they missed. Every graduation seat they left empty. Every night I wondered why I wasn't enough. And I said, you should call Caleb. He was always your family. She gasped like I had slapped her. Ethan, how can you say that? We made sacrifices for you. That was the moment I realized they had rewritten the story. In their minds, abandoning me had become a sacrifice. Leaving me had become generosity. My pain had become their noble decision. I said, you didn't sacrifice for me. You threw me away. She started crying harder. Then my father took the phone. His voice was older, rougher, but still carried the same arrogance. Don't talk to your mother like that. I was 12 again for half a second. Then I remembered I wasn't. I said, don't call me again unless it's to apologize. He snapped, you owe us respect. We raised you for 12 years. No, I said. You tolerated me for 12 years. Uncle Raymond raised me. Then I hung up. For 2 weeks, the calls kept coming. Texts from Caleb. Voicemails from my mother. Angry messages from my father. Then they changed tactics. They showed up at my office. I was in a board meeting when my assistant, Nora, stepped in quietly and said, there are 3 people downstairs claiming to be your family. I already knew. Through the glass wall, I saw them in the lobby. My mother wore her church dress, the one she used whenever she wanted to look innocent. My father leaned on a cane, looking frail but angry. Caleb wore a cheap suit and the same entitled expression he had worn his entire life. I could have had security remove them. Instead, I went downstairs. The moment my mother saw me, she rushed forward with open arms. I stepped back. Her face froze. Ethan, she whispered, loud enough for the receptionist to hear, please don't be cold. We're your parents. I said, you're visitors without an appointment. Caleb scoffed. Wow. Money really changed you. I looked at him. No. Being abandoned changed me. Money just gave me witnesses. My father's face turned red. He said, we didn't abandon you. Raymond manipulated you against us. That was new. I asked. Is that the story now? My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice. Your uncle never had children. He wanted you all to himself. We thought we were doing what was best. I stared at her. That lie was so disgusting I almost admired how easily she said it. You left me on his porch with trash bags, I said. People in the lobby went quiet. My mother's eyes darted around. Ethan. Not here. Why not? I asked. You weren't embarrassed when you left me there. Caleb stepped in. Look, we didn't come here to fight. Dad needs treatment. Mom needs help with the house. I need a job. You have plenty. Just help us out. There it was. The truth. No apology. No accountability. Just demands. I said, you want money. My father said, we want what any decent son would give his parents. I looked at him and asked, was I your son when you drove away? He didn't answer. That silence told the whole lobby everything. I told Nora to escort them out. My mother screamed as security approached. After everything we did for you? I turned back and said, name one thing. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. A week later, Caleb posted about me online. He didn't use my name, but everyone knew. He wrote about how his selfish millionaire brother refused to help his sick father and elderly mother. He said I had been taken in by a rich uncle and brainwashed into hating my real family. The post spread through extended relatives. People I hadn't spoken to in 20 years suddenly messaged me. Be the bigger person. You only get one mother. Your father is sick. Don't let money harden your heart. Not one of them asked what happened when I was 12. Not one. So I decided it was time they knew. I didn't make a public post. I didn't rant. I simply invited everyone to a family meeting at a private event room in one of our hotels. My parents came because they thought I was finally giving in. Caleb came because he thought there would be money. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends filled the room. I stood at the front with Uncle Raymond beside me. He was older now, walking with a cane after his stroke, but his presence still commanded silence. My mother smiled at me like a woman who thought she had won. I began calmly. I've been accused of abandoning my family. Before I respond, I want everyone here to understand what actually happened. My father muttered, "Don't do this." I looked at him. "You did it first." Then I played the voicemail my mother had left Uncle Raymond when I was 12. I had never heard it until Uncle Raymond gave it to me that morning. Her voice filled the room. "Raymond, we can't keep Ethan anymore. He's too much. Caleb has opportunities, and Ethan is holding the family back. You have money, so take him. Don't make us feel guilty." The room went silent. My mother covered her mouth. Then I played my father's message from the next day. "Don't bring the boy back. We made our decision. If Raymond wants to play hero, let him." A cousin whispered, "Oh my God." Caleb stared at the floor. I looked around the room. I was 12 years old. They didn't lose me. They didn't struggle to get me back. They didn't sacrifice for me. They discarded me. My mother started sobbing. "This is cruel, Ethan." I said, "No. Cruel was making a child wonder why he wasn't worth keeping." Then Uncle Raymond stood. His voice was quiet but firm. "I never took Ethan from them. I opened the door after they left him outside it." My father tried to stand, shaking with rage. "You always thought you were better than us." Raymond looked at him sadly. "No, I hoped you would become better than you were." That broke something in the room. People started leaving. Not dramatically, quietly. Ashamed. The family narrative collapsed in less than 10 minutes. But my parents weren't finished. 2 days later, I received a letter from an attorney. My parents were threatening to sue Uncle Raymond's estate planning documents, claiming I had manipulated him and that they were entitled to family assets. That was their biggest mistake. Because Uncle Raymond had prepared for this years before. He had documentation. Messages. Witness statements. Financial records. Records showing they never paid child support. Records showing Uncle Raymond covered every medical bill, school expense, and living cost from the day they abandoned me. But the most devastating document was one I didn't know existed. When I turned 18, Uncle Raymond had offered my parents a chance to reconnect with me. He wrote them a letter. He told them I was graduating, that I had become a good young man, and that it was not too late to repair the damage. My mother replied, "Ethan is Raymond's responsibility now. We don't want confusion. Caleb is our priority." I read that sentence 3 times. Caleb is our priority. Even at 18, after 6 years, they still didn't want me. That letter didn't hurt like I expected. It freed me. Because sometimes the truth does not break you. Sometimes it releases you from hoping. My lawyer sent one response. If they pursued the case, we would countersue for defamation, harassment, and repayment of unpaid support expenses. They disappeared for a while after that. Then winter came. My father's condition worsened. Caleb lost his apartment. My mother called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered by accident. This time, she didn't perform. She sounded tired. "Ethan," she said, "we're going to lose the house." I said nothing. She continued, "I know we hurt you." It was the first time she had ever said anything close to the truth. Then she ruined it. "But you have so much now. Can't you let the past go?" I looked out my office window at the city skyline. For years, I thought forgiveness meant giving people access again. But Uncle Raymond taught me better. Forgiveness is releasing the poison. It is not handing the knife back to the person who stabbed you. I said, "I have let the past go. That's why I'm not trying to hurt you. But I'm also not going to save you from the life you chose." She whispered, "So you'll let your parents suffer?" I said, "You let your child suffer." She began crying again, but this time I didn't feel anger. I felt distance. Peaceful, final distance. I told her, "I'll pay for Dad's medical consultation directly to the hospital. Not cash. Not mortgage payments. Not Caleb's rent. One consultation. That's it." She said, "That's not enough." And there it was again. I almost smiled. "To you," I said, "nothing I did was ever enough." Then I hung up. My father refused the consultation because it came with conditions. Caleb sent one last message. "You think you're better than us?" I replied for the first and only time. "No. I just became better than what you did to me." After that, I blocked them. All of them. 6 months later, Uncle Raymond passed away peacefully in his sleep. At his funeral, the church was full. Employees came. Business partners came. Neighbors came. People stood up one by one and told stories about how he had helped them quietly, without needing praise. I spoke last. I told them that Raymond was not just my uncle. He was the man who found a discarded boy on his porch and decided that boy was worth keeping. I said, he didn't save me with money. He saved me with consistency. He showed up every day until I believed I deserved to be shown up for. After the funeral, his attorney read the will. Most of his estate went into a foundation for abandoned and neglected children. A portion went to loyal employees. The company shares went to me. And then there was one final instruction. Raymond had left a small house on the edge of town in my name. Not the mansion. Not the vacation property. A modest, warm, two-story home with a blue door. The note attached said, "Ethan, every child deserves a door that opens for them. Keep this one open for someone who needs it." So I did. 1 year later, that house became the first home funded by the Raymond House Foundation. We created a program for teenagers who had been abandoned, displaced, or aged out of unsafe homes. Not an institution. A real home. Warm meals. Mentors. Education support. Therapy. Job training. People who stayed. On opening day, I stood on the porch and watched a 15-year-old boy arrive with his belongings in 2 trash bags. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. He looked exactly how I had felt, scared, angry, ashamed of needing help. I walked down the steps, took one of the bags from his hand, and said, "Come inside. You're safe here." His eyes filled with tears, but he quickly looked away. I understood. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone on the porch. The sunset turned the windows gold. For the first time, I thought about my parents without pain. Not because what they did was okay. It never would be. But because their abandonment was no longer the defining event of my life. It was the beginning of a story they didn't get to control. They thought they were throwing me away. Instead, they placed me in front of the only person who knew how to help me become whole. Years later, they came begging for my help. And I finally understood the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge would have been destroying them. Justice was refusing to let them destroy me again. My name is Ethan. My parents abandoned me at 12. My uncle took me in. And everything good I became started the night one man opened the door.